This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And today we have a very important show, as all of our shows are, because we're purely informational. We don't promote or sell or, I don't say buy this stock or that share or that stuff. But the reason this show is so important, it's about the number one cause of bankruptcy, not only in America, but probably in the world. The number one cause. And every one of us will face it. Every single one of us will face this possible tragedy, and it's possible. And the number one reason people go bankrupt is healthcare. They lose their health, something catastrophic happens to them, they can't afford it. I don't know if you've seen how much it costs to get cancer treatment or heart treatments now. You can't afford it. So it bankrupts people. So our guest today is a longtime friend, John McGregor. He's the author of the book, The Top 10 Reasons Why Rich People Go Broke. And one of them is healthcare. Yeah. Because at 75 years old right now, I'm fighting for my health. What I used to do 25 years ago is not, I struggle today, and it's health. So all of us, if you're fortunate, you will face it. Maybe not you, but somebody in your family will come to you and say, can you help us out? So John, welcome to the Rich Dad program. And I'll give you a little bit of your background is that you're a CFP, certified financial planner. Would you explain the difference between that and just a regular financial planner? Because there's a big difference.
There's a massive difference. It's like being a tax preparer versus a CPA. To become a financial advisor today, it typically takes 6 weeks to pass your Series 7. 6 weeks, and you're a financial advisor. You're the steward of people's money within 6 weeks. And actually, you can do it sooner if you get through that test quicker. But a hairdresser, we always laugh about this. It takes a hairdresser about a year to a year and a half to become a hairdresser. Not to demean hairdressers, but you can just see the disparity in what it takes to become a financial advisor versus a hairdresser. And if you mess up as a hairdresser, the hair grows back, right?
30 days later, it's back.
Exactly.
You got to add more color to it or do something.
So a CFP, it's a rigorous program. You have to qualify certain years in the business, rigorous background checks, and then and it's basically about a 2-year process. And then the exam is excruciating. I was grateful to get through it. So yeah,
it's almost like a law degree because that's about the same time frames.
Yeah, it is.
And then you also were teaching other financial planners and CFPs and all that because that's how well you know this stuff.
I spent a considerable amount of my career, and I still do, coach and mentor other financial advisors in the industry. Yeah.
Good. They need help. Because I'm laughing because I'm much older than John, but I remember in 74 when I was getting out of the Marine Corps, 74 was the first year of ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act. Today is known as the 401k. And I remember everybody was being hustled, become a financial planner. And I'm going, holy mackerel. So every school teacher was quitting their job to become a financial planner. And my rich dad was just cracking up. My poor dad thought it was a good idea. Oh, good, school teachers can make extra money. But my rich dad was an entrepreneur. He says, oh, this is going to be a tragedy. So you're going to have the poor and incompetent leading the stupid. He just thought it was the most horrible thing. But I checked it out. I went down to right on Bishop Street. John and I from Honolulu. I went on Bishop Street and interviewed with a couple of these financial planning firms and all that. And my skin crawled. I just couldn't take it. I just said, I don't know anything, but you guys know less than me. The guys who were trying to sell me into becoming one. Mm-hmm. So that's why I went to work for Xerox instead, because a little more honest selling copiers. So, John, what is this? What do you have to say with people about this catastrophic illness or healthcare? What do you see happening in the future?
Well, I'm so glad you decided to have this show, and it's always a pleasure to be on the show. This is an extremely important topic, not only for individuals but families. And I'll tell you, over the many years of working with thousands of people, this issue of nursing care or long-term care has been one of, if not the biggest financial threat to families. Actually, not just financially, but relationships as well. I mean, you see a lot of sibling infighting when parents need this type of service. As parents have little to no savings, they end up living with one of their children because they can't afford a long-term care facility. And this always causes problems. And it can be a terrible strain on families. And now suddenly they have to take care of a grandparent or a parent on top of their own family. And it's a huge strain on time and money. And most people think long-term care is covered by the government. It's not. Well, I should say, not the kind of care you want. And we can get into the differences in a little bit. But yeah, this is a serious issue for everybody. The statistics just say it all. When you consider every day, 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65, and 7 out of 10 people will require long-term care in their lifetime. 7 out of 10, that's 70%. And of those who need it, on average, they need it for 2 years. 20% need it for 5 years. So it's a huge financial strain.
And how much is long-term old age care? Have to call it. How much does it cost on average?
Yeah. So in fact, I just pulled up the recent numbers yesterday, and it's amazing. And it really depends on where you live. And there's 3 types of care. You have home care, you have community care, and then you have a facility, like a long-term care facility, like you own in Arizona. But the average cost, and I'll just pull this up, and I'll just use Arizona as an example. For a semi-private room, you're looking at $79,000 per year. That's on average. A private room is about $96,000. And using our lovely home state of Hawaii, semi-private rooms $150,000 per year, and a private room's $170,000 per year. I mean, think of what that does to someone's 401k.
And a lot of people don't make that money when they're working. You know what I mean? It's like twice as much as they earn when they're working. And imagine what happens when the family gets saddled with the bill.
Yep.
So that's where the fighting starts.
Yep. 66% of caregivers use their own retirement and savings funds to pay for this. And within a year, it could just be wiped out. When you consider the average 401k balance for someone 65 or older is about $250,000, that could be wiped out in a year or year and a half.
And health is something we all face. I mean, I don't care how healthy or unhealthy you are, you'll face health yep. problems. And that's why we want to have this program, have you on it, but how you prepare for it, because as John made the comment is, I decided the best way to provide for my health care is own the building. And so it's really a great deal. I make a lot of money. I own the building, you know, and I've reserved the penthouse in it, and I'll get the best health care because I own the frickin' building. You know? I
hope you're saving me a room, Robert.
And anyway,
I mean, the classic quote I see often, it's a cartoon. It's a husband and wife talking about their retirement. They said, well, honey, if we just delay our retirement and have an early death, we'll be just fine.
I hate to say that. That was my saving grace. Was both my mother and father died almost instantaneously. My mother was there one day and dead the next.
Yeah.
And the same as my father, he was just there for like 3 months and dead.
Wow.
So it was kind of a blessing in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But Kim's parents, they're blessed with longevity. So it costs a lot of money.
Yep.
You know, to care for them.
Yep.
So that's why we have this program today is what the heck do we do? So what kind of insurance is there against, you know, you don't even have to get old. You could have a car wreck or you could fall down and do something. Mm-hmm. Like I met this woman whose son played football. He got injured with an ACL, tear. And the orthopedic surgeon screwed it up. Now the kid can't walk. Mm. So now she's in this lawsuit because the kid can't walk. It lost his football career and all that. So it could be it could come from anything, beyond old age, right? I mean, health is a very important, expensive subject. What I'm trying to say.
No question about it. As you said, it's the leading cause of bankruptcy. So if you're in your 20s or 30s watching this and you have parents or grandparents, I would seriously encourage them to get a long-term care policy to cover this need because they will need it. If you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s, you should seriously consider getting a long-term care policy for yourself and your spouse if you have one. because as we talked about earlier, it's absolutely devastating. So what the type of insurance that you would need is basically a long-term care policy. And there are all kinds of long-term care policies with all different types of bells and whistles. But on average, on the low end, you'd be looking at something that would cost about $900 a year. And then it's unlimited on the upside in terms of premium based on daily amounts that you want to cover yourself for, and then a maximum cap on how much you want to cover yourself for. And then there's all kinds of bells and whistles in between. But this is extremely, extremely important because you do not want to end up in a government subsidized facility for the remaining years of your life, because that is not a place where you want to be. You want to be living in your building across the street in Scottsdale, where they have all the nice accommodations and fun things to do. So,
well, I tell you, one of the reasons I'm such an advocate for financial education and all this is, number one, I don't trust financial planners, as you know. I have long discussions on that one. It's 6 weeks and they're planning your future. I'm going, holy mackerel, these guys can't even walk and chew gum at the same time, and they're going to plan my future. But also, I got turned down for long-term health. Huh. And that was kind of a wake-up call. They said, your health is too bad. Yeah. And I went, wow. Because, and sometimes, if you let life be your best teacher, sometimes it is the best teacher if you're open to being taught. Mm-hmm. So this is years and years ago, I got turned down for my health care. And because I've had to have open heart surgery and all that. That's why Dr. Gopalan's part of our team, and Dr. Nicole's part of our team, because health is a very important part of our lives. So mm-hmm. I not only did I have to get healthier, and especially after COVID, because what Dr. Gopalan said to me, he's a heart transplant specialist and a doctor of acupuncture. He says, COVID is a function of bad health. He says, if you have good health, you won't get it. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that you'll not get it, but he says it's not as bad. Yeah. So anyway, it was a good wake-up call for me, but that was kind of my response to it, is when I had a chance to buy the healthcare facility. I bought it because I couldn't get health insurance. And now I make millions a year from this healthcare facility, plus I don't pay tax on it. But not too many people can do that. Yeah. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? So what does a person do when they get turned down? I mean, you just keep going?
Well, they get healthier like you did with Rada and Nicole. That's one avenue. Yeah, because your medical history will have an impact on whether or not you qualify for a long-term care policy, or it may cost more because you have medical history, medical issues in the past. So the first thing you need to do is just apply, get that process going.
Who would they talk to? Is it just an ordinary insurance agent, or how do you find that?
You can go to an ordinary insurance agent. Most of them do offer long-term care in terms of on top of other types of insurance, or even a financial planner. When I was a financial planner, I was offering these plans as well many years ago. So, those would be the two people that you would go to.
Okay. And then it's such a serious thing. I'm going, holy man, because I was yesterday was 9/11, and I was walking around the Prescott Fairgrounds looking at all the people. And Americans aren't that healthy, if you know what I mean. They had the big turkey legs and the enchiladas and all this stuff. I'm going, sure is good life here in America, but boy, I tell you, it's not healthy. It took everything in my power not to buy a turkey leg. But anyway.
Well, those people are going to pay the price, unfortunately, not only physically, but financially as well. And so many people think that the government is going to take care of them in the end, and that's just not the case.
So what do you know about Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and all that? What do you know about that?
So there's a lot of confusion over this, and people think they have Medicare that will cover them for long-term care insurance. And by the way, long-term care is used when you can't do 2 out of 7 ADLs, activities of daily living. So once you cannot do 2, that's eating, dressing, bathing, those kind of things, then you would qualify to enter a nursing care facility. But Medicare does not cover you for long-term care. Medicare only kicks in when you've been hospitalized and you've been in the hospital for 3 days, and you're admitted to a Medicare facility within 30 days of your prior hospital stay. And you need skilled nursing care. So, for example, my dad, as you know, Robert, 40 days ago, he slipped in the shower and he fractured his spine and broke 2 ribs, 92 years old. So he was admitted to the hospital for about 10 days. And then they took him to a skilled nursing facility where he was in for another 10 days. That was covered under Medicare because he came from a hospital and he was in rehabilitation. Now, Medicare will cover the first 20 days of that skilled nursing facility. After that, from day 20 to day 100, it covers up to about $195 per day. Anything over that is out of pocket. And right now, the facility he is in costs $500 a day.
Holy
and since
Christ.
and this is a small town, fairly affordable place to live. I mean, you look at places like San Francisco or even downtown Scottsdale or other more, richer communities, it's going to be way more than $500 a day. So he is just coming up on his 20 days. And then after that, we'd be responsible for about $300 a day after that. And then if he's in there for 100 days and over, then it's 100% out of pocket. So that's Medicare. Medicaid, on the other hand, is when you have no assets. You basically you've drawn down your assets, your savings to $2,000 or less. That's when you would qualify for a government-run facility. It's a joint federal and state assistance program that finances healthcare for low-income people. It's really just a skilled nursing facility. And again, this is not where you want to end up for the remaining years. And you could be in this facility forever as long as you drawn down your savings. Yeah, exactly. And you have no income. Yeah. Okay. So you can only imagine what that facility is like.
Okay. When we come back, we'll be going to more questions about. I'm going to ask Sarah to ask questions on this because it's a very, very important subject that's oftentimes not discussed until it's too late. So when we come back again, we're talking to a good friend, John McGregor, a fellow from Hawaii who had to leave the People's Republic. So many people are leaving Hawaii because it's too woke. It is just too woke. And it's frightening how Nazi it's getting there.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Hawaii. The sunsets are beautiful, sunrises are beautiful, but boy, I tell you, the government is communist. It's horrible. Yep. So we come back, we'll be talking to John McGregor, a dear friend from Hawaii. We'll be right back.
The elite, backed by the accreditation laws, have had access to all the early investment opportunities. They have had the opportunity to invest in tech companies in the private markets before dumping their winners into the public markets for huge gains. But now you can take back your power. Introducing the Chainraise platform, the platform built for the people, by the people. On Chainraise, you will find blockchain companies, tech startups, real estate deals, and more that you can invest in. Anyone 18 and over across the world can create a diversified portfolio with under $1,000. Go hunting for the next tech unicorn or look for cash flow opportunities all through one platform. Join us in taking back your power. Go to chainraise.io today.
Feeling powerless over current events and your financial future? Financial freedom is your freedom. Robert Kiyosaki is the best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Over 40 million people have taken Robert's advice. Now it's your turn. Attend Robert's free virtual wealth building event. Claim your free access now at richdadfree.com. Don't wait, access is limited. Go to richdadfree.com. That's richdadfree.com.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about healthcare and how expensive it can get, and especially today for my generation, the boomer generation. There's 10,000 of us retiring every day. The question is, how much money do they have? And the stats are showing right now, because of this wonderful Biden plan of Build Back Better, or whatever the heck he's doing, is Americans are dipping into their savings because they can't afford the inflation. Inflation's killing them. So the savings are being depleted from the inside via inflation. You can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, or YouTube, and leave us a comment whenever you listen. And all of our podcasts are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them for one reason, is because we're purely informational and educational. We sell nothing. We don't make a recommendation what to buy, what to sell. But also, if you have friends, family members, or somebody who needs to listen to this program, go to richdadradio.com and ask them to listen to it, especially if you're, let's say you're in your 30s and you have a parent that's in their 60s. This is a very important program to listen to because it's something the family should discuss. So our guest today is John McGregor. He's a fellow from Hawaii, but he had to leave Hawaii like I had to leave because it's just too woke. Anyway, we're talking about healthcare. So Sarah, what comments?
So during the last segment, John shared some staggering statistics about what it costs per day to have his father in a Medicare, facility or under the care of Medicare, right?
The long term.
So I was doing the math, and those 80 days then that aren't covered, right? That's $24,000.
That would cost $24,000 to keep my dad in this facility for 20 from day 20 to day 100.
My point is, so I have two parents that are 75. This is obviously something that's going to be, or is a concern for my siblings and I, because they're getting at that age. But
yes,
but this is a crushing. This could crush a middle class family. Is an expense like this, and so the alternative is Medicaid facility, which John, you're saying. Nobody wants to go. Nobody wants to go there. Can you talk about that for what the alternative is if you can't pay?
Well, there's two alternatives. You move back in with your parents move back in with you, Sarah, and you take care of them. And sadly, that's what happens to so many families that can't afford this stuff, where they don't want to be in a Medicaid facility. If they need that type of skilled nursing that you cannot deliver or provide, they would have to spend all their assets down to less than $2,000 in savings. Then they would qualify for Medicaid. Then they would go into that government-run facility.
So Sarah's siblings, would have to be also come destitute and poor to qualify?
No, just the parents.
Just
that
the
would
parents. Yeah. So the alternative is either we take care of them, or they would have to
divest everything.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking so I looked into the facility, the house, the senior living that Robert owns, the property. We called it to ask how much it would cost. And if you lived in a 1-bedroom, it looked like an apartment, but meals included, it was $4,000 a month, which to me, that wasn't terrible if everything's included, but the more services you added. So if you needed long-term, to be in the long-term memory care portion of this facility, you're talking $8,000 to $10,000 a month.
Yeah. And by the way, these costs are increasing way more than inflation. The average cost of home care services increased by about $1,000 annually between 2004 and 2020. And the average private room in a nursing home jumped by about $2,500 each year during that same time period. So these things are going up. And the reason is COVID had something to do with it, because these nursing care facilities had to adopt to PPE and new regulations and compliance, but it really boils down to a supply and demand issue. We talked about 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day, and 70% of them are going to need this type of service or are going into this service. That's a huge strain on supply, and trained professionals, there's just not enough of them. Hence, that's why these rates are going up. And by the way, I didn't mention this. The sooner you buy your long-term care policy, the cheaper it is. The longer you wait, the costs go up. That's why I really strongly encourage people to shop for a policy today, not tomorrow, because every single day you wait, the cost of those premiums will go up.
So again, because I've never, we're teaching at Arizona State University this last Friday. And that's the one thing that Tom Wheelwright, our CPA, was talking about. He says, part of your team, you have to have a good insurance agent. And I don't even think that way. So anyway, so how do you recommend a person find a good insurance agent?
Yeah,
because there's a lot of scum out there too, right? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll get into that in a second. But there are these policies now that I didn't have when I was selling these, is that they combine life insurance and long-term care insurance together. So there's a lot of new things that have come out that make it more affordable, make it more flexible. But to answer your question, yeah, you have to be very careful with who you decide to use, and do not choose the first person you bought. Don't go to the free or the first person you met. Don't go to the free chicken dinner and be enamored with them and then suddenly sign up on the spot. I've seen that way too many times. You have to interview at least 3 professionals before you decide who you choose from. And be very careful with insurance people. A lot of them are good people, but they believe they can solve every problem in America with insurance. And when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And insurance people are typically the ones that will just use insurance to solve all of your financial problems. So what I would be looking at, I would definitely interview an insurance agent, but also look for financial planners that offer this as well, and get a variety of quotes from different people, and really do your due diligence.
So I really see this as, just as important as I would get car insurance. I may not ever need it.
Yeah.
But there probably will be a day that I need
odds,
it.
no.
So I can't I urge people, especially like John was saying, do it younger than later. It's going to save you a way more money.
But also the reason why I encourage you to listen to this podcast again at RichDadRadio.com. This is a discussion for the family. For your how many siblings?
So I have 3 other siblings. Yeah, my sister and 2 brothers.
Yeah,
and then wow, and plus you have your husbands.
Yep, and that's a whole other story because my parents planned very early on. So I feel pretty comfortable that won't be a long discussion with them, because they've planned for it. On my husband's side, on the other hand, the total opposite. I mean, his mother's 74 years old and she's still working because she has to, not because she enjoys it.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments, John?
Yeah, that's so common. I see that so often. And, it's a serious discussion, Sarah, that you're going to have with your husband to figure out what the game plan is, because these health issues don't gradually occur. They happen immediately. I mean, one morning I'm sitting there having my coffee. The next morning, the next moment I hear my dad slip and fall, boom, fractured spine and 2 ribs. So there's no way to plan for that. So you got to have a game plan now, Sarah, going into this, because anything can happen at any time, especially at that age.
Yeah.
So once again, we have RichDadRadio.com just for for this reason. Get together with friends, family, and associates and listen, discuss now, and then take action. Anything else, Sarah? I mean, this is frightening. This is
I'm
terrifying
just thinking, too,
me.
aside, John, is there any other, aside from the long-term care policy, is there anything us in our, even I'm in my 40s, that we could be doing now? So my, children or nieces or nephews don't have to take care of my siblings and I.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just going back to exactly what we've been talking about is I would meet with an insurance professional, someone who really understands this, and seriously consider getting a long-term care policy, even if it's an inexpensive, kind of skimmed down version. Get something, Sarah. You really need that.
Got it. So this episode is really just a warning, just a dire warning.
Yeah.
Again, I think
in the years I've been doing this is, if not one of, it's the biggest financial threat a family will face. This need for long-term care. 7 out of 10 people are going to need this care. Most of them will need it for 2 years. A handful will need it for 5. So you can just imagine what that does to someone's savings or retirement.
Well, and just as Robert had opened the show, it's the number 1 cause of bankruptcy. Yep. This is a question. This is a question I have. So let's say my parents have to file bankruptcy, something tragic happens, catastrophic happens. How does that work? Does that pass down to us kids? Does that bankrupt in their?
No. Unless you were a dependent. No, that does not. So, okay. And by the way, you can't just spend down your money thinking you can get into Medicaid, because they're going to do a look back on your money to see where it went. Because a lot of people think, well, I've got $100,000. I don't want to. I'm going to hide it. You can't do that. It's got to be a legitimate situation where you're in dire financial straits in order to qualify for Medicaid. A lot of people try to play games, and then it comes back to bite them.
And then the final thing, like for me, is I have siblings who are my age, and they're in, not the best financial health.
Yep.
And then so that's going to backfire on me. Plus, Kim has siblings.
Yep. So you can expect that phone call, Robert.
This is a major, major, major problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the boomers are getting older and older and older, and the kids are not prepared. And like I was saying, that after COVID-19, a lot of middle class are now eating into their savings just to cover inflation. So this is not good.
Eating into their savings and increasing their credit card spending. Yep. And sadly, the overall strategy that I see from most people is they just hope everything will work out in the end.
Right.
And I will tell you, hope is not a strategy, it's a financial strategy.
So, John, what's the title of your book again?
Thanks, Robert. Got a copy right here. It's the Top 10 Reasons the Rich Go Broke. Powerful stories that'll transform your financial life forever. So
good. And John dealt with a lot of these people who were rich and they're now poor.
Yeah. Tragic stories of people that I knew and you knew, Robert,
right?
That had everything and then lost it all. And one of the stories is health related, just this topic that we're talking about. Yeah.
So, John, if our listeners had additional questions, is there a way to contact you or get a hold of you if they have further questions?
Oh, absolutely. They can find me on my website and they can contact me there through the contact form. And feel free. If anyone has any questions or they need a referral for a professional, happy to do so. And you can reach me at John MacGregor, that's MAC, MacGregor.net.
Great. And I'll include a link in the show notes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you're going to be swamped, my friend. You're going to be swamped.
Happy to help anybody.
Yeah,
so, and I don't sell this stuff anymore, so there's nothing in it for me. I just want to make sure as many people are protected and looked after as I can. So,
yeah. So once again, John, thanks very much. Fellow rugby player from Hawaii and all this stuff. And he is good friends with a guy named Barack Obama. John and Barack went to the same school, and he wasn't a poor black kid, was he?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. He lived in a very affluent neighborhood, went to Punahou. It's an affluent private high school. His mom was quite successful. Yeah.
I couldn't afford to go Punahou. That's my father wouldn't send me anyway. But he now owns one of the biggest estates in Hawaii and Martha's Vineyard and all this.
Yeah.
And as I always say, people don't look at what they say, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And the first people Obama bailed out, was General Motors and the banks.
That's right.
That's where he gets his campaign money from.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this is an interesting time in the world right now. And so I'm glad people are listening to Rich Dad Radio. And John, thanks for being a part of the Rich Dad team.
Thank you. Always great to see you.
Good.
Take care.
So we'll come back with a final word with Sarah. Thank you. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the good news and bad news, and this time is about healthcare. And you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, and YouTube. Please leave a comment. But most importantly, we don't sell anything. It's John MacGregor. He's a dear friend from Hawaii, friend of Barack Obama. And, all the stories they tell about poor people and all this stuff. But anyway, please listen to this program again at richdadradio.com and discuss with your family, because healthcare is a family issue. And if you have, Sarah, you have siblings, brothers, sisters. I have brothers and sisters, and all they have are master's degrees, and they think they're protected. I'm going, oh my God. And then you get that phone call and you say, I can't afford this. Can you give me the money? Mm-hmm. And so it's best to go to richdadradio.com, listen to this with your family and friends, and start the discussion. Then decide what you're going to do. Final words.
Yeah,
Sarah.
I think even just starting the discussion, right, is the first step. Yeah, we've had shows on with Dr. Nicole and Rada. Health is wealth, and if you're healthy,
you don't think about it.
You don't have to, right? So there's that aspect of it. But then, as John described, accidents happen. Something can happen in a split of a second, and change the course of your financial life forever.
Right.
And so it's better to plan and prepare and get protected now while you can before the emergency happens. Because once the emergency happens, he described, if you're on Medicare, generally you're probably in the upper middle class anyway, but still that's $24,000 you'd spend in 90 days.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money for most families, right? Yeah. So this was an important show because I think, especially as the baby boomer generation is aging, it's a big concern for their children.
But it goes systemic, it goes wide, kids, grandkids, futures,
Right. Absolutely.
College education. If the kids aren't working, if they're lazy. I had one friend, his daughter, somebody hit somebody with their car.
Right.
And they lost everything. I mean, they were rich one day, but just because the daughter's boyfriend or husband in their car hit somebody in the park, in a crosswalk, they got sued and lost everything.
Yep.
Because they had no asset protection. So this is not, this is why the Rich Dad Radio program is to let you be aware, but most importantly, go to richdadradio.com and start your discussion with your friends and family, especially your family right now.
Yeah. And as John said, he's welcome to make a referral or help you. If you have any questions, I'll put the link in the description below. It's johnmcgregor.net. Because there's no time like the present to get started on this.
When you're healthy.
When you're healthy, before you need it, yeah.
So once again, thank you, Sarah. Thanks for John McGregor, and thank you all for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show.
Thank you.